Pregnant wife returns millionaire husband, abandons mistress and begs for a second chance. Have you ever witnessed a life so entangled with secrets, betrayal, and unexpected redemption that it felt more riveting than fiction? Welcome to the tumultuous world of Andrew Lockwood, a charismatic millionaire whose perfect marriage was left in shambles when his pregnant wife, Elena, mysteriously disappeared. In her absence, he found solace in the arms of a mistress, Vanessa, only to have his entire life upended by Elena's dramatic return. Scandalous rumors, hidden agendas, and shocking revelations pave the twisting road as Andrew begs for a second chance. Buckle up for a roller coaster of heartbreak, revenge, and redemption you won't soon forget. Andrew Lockwood seemed to have it all: wealth, status, and a picture-perfect marriage. Born into the storied Lockwood family fortune, he inherited not just money, but also an empire of family-run real estate businesses operating across California. The Lockwood name was well known in philanthropic circles, having hospitals and schools named after their ancestors. Andrew grew up in a palatial estate in Malibu, splashing around in turquoise swimming pools and driving fast cars. By the time he turned 16, he first met Elena Ramirez at a charity gala in Los Angeles. Elena wasn't wealthy. She was there as an invited guest of Dr. Regina Moore, a physician who had saved Elena's mother's life years before. Shy and understated, Elena was the type of woman who preferred quiet corners and genuine conversations over showy displays. When she locked eyes with Andrew from across the room, a spark was lit. Andrew's steel blue gaze and confident stride were impossible to ignore, and Elena's gentleness was a breath of fresh air for the millionaire playboy. Their courtship was a whirlwind of extravagant dates, weekends in Paris, private dinners on yachts, star-studded fundraisers, but behind the sparkle, there was genuine affection. Andrew was tired of the superficial women who seemed only to want the Lockwood name. In Elena, he found someone who liked him for who he was, a man longing to escape the hollow glitz of society. He often joked with her, "Your simplicity is what makes me feel at home." Soon, Andrew proposed with a diamond ring the size of a quail's egg, and Elena accepted, her eyes brimming with tears of joy. The world cheered the union of a real-life prince and his humble yet enchanting bride. Their wedding was a media spectacle, covered in detail by top magazines. Friends from all over the world flew in, including well-known figures like Christine Morgan, a highly respected philanthropist who'd mentored Elena in her early years. On that day, Elena, dressed in a Vera Wang gown, was the epitome of grace, walking down the aisle under a canopy of white roses. Andrew, standing tall in a tailored Armani suit, looked both regal and smitten. When the priest pronounced them husband and wife, the crowd erupted in cheers, camera flashes lighting up the summer sky. For a while, life was pure bliss. Elena joined Andrew in philanthropic endeavors, bringing her compassionate perspective to the Lockwood Foundation. Andrew continued to grow their real estate empire, acquiring new properties in prime locations and expanding the brand's prestige. They traveled extensively, from sipping champagne in London's most exclusive clubs to hiking hidden trails in Patagonia. The press tagged them the unstoppable power couple, and it wasn't far from the truth. They looked unstoppable indeed. Yet, beneath the veneer of their perfect marriage, dark clouds slowly gathered. Andrew's business demands became increasingly suffocating. He jetted off for deal closings in Hong Kong or property inspections in Dubai, leaving Elena alone in their vast Malibu estate for weeks at a time. He would miss birthdays, anniversaries, and the small moments that mattered to her. She tried to speak up, but Andrew's default response was an apology wrapped in lavish gifts or high-end getaways. none of which truly healed the loneliness gnawing at her heart. Eventually, the tension simmering beneath their idyllic surface threatened to bubble over. One brisk autumn evening, Elena discovered she was pregnant. While her heart soared at the news, believing a child would bring them closer together, fate had other plans. Andrew's reaction, though positive, was distant. He was swamped with a business expansion in Asia and left the next day, promising to return for her first ultrasound. That promise would be broken. It was the first of many cracks forming in their golden life together. Little did anyone suspect that Elena's pregnancy would set off a chain of events leading to betrayal, heartbreak, and a shocking disappearance. Nor could they guess the scandal that would greet the world when she returned. Elena's pregnancy should have been a time of joy and anticipation. She pictured Andrew and herself painting the nursery walls, a soft, inviting yellow, and browsing through baby clothes in quaint boutiques. Instead, she found herself alone, wandering the marble hallways of the Malibu mansion, her footsteps echoing in the emptiness. Andrew was a ghost in his own home, perpetually away on business. When he did resurface, his phone buzzed incessantly, accompanied by messages that he glanced at with guarded eyes. One late afternoon, while resting in the rose garden, Elena overheard the household staff whispering. The hushed gossip revolved around someone special in Andrew's life, but no one dared to say her name outright. Suspicion gnawed at Elena like a slow poison. She tried to dismiss the rumors as exaggerated servant talk, the product of tabloid-like speculation. Still, the seeds of doubt were planted. Despite the swirl of uneasy whispers, she chose to believe in her husband's fidelity until a phone call shattered her trust. It happened a week later. Andrew was away, supposedly for a real estate summit in New York. Elena's morning sickness had been unrelenting, and she woke up feeling particularly fragile. As she reached for her phone to call Dr. Regina Moore for advice, she noticed a missed call from an unknown number. Thinking it might be related to the summit or one of Andrew's business associates, she returned the call. A woman answered, her voice smooth and intimate. She introduced herself as Vanessa Reynolds. Vanessa spoke with confidence, laced in her every syllable. She apologized, in a tone dripping with mock politeness, for any inconvenience her call might be causing. Then she delivered the blow. She claimed to be in an exclusive relationship with Andrew. Elena felt her stomach plummet. In that chilling moment, it was as if the walls of the grand mansion pressed in on her. Every breath grew short. The world spun. Vanessa continued speaking, describing details only someone intimately involved with Andrew would know: his favorite aftershave, a private trip to Bora Bora the previous month, and how he had confided in her about troubles at home. A swirl of desperation surged through Elena. She wanted to scream, to curse, to deny every word. But in the face of explicit details, she found no ground to stand on. Shaking violently, she hung up without a single retort. Tears stained her cheeks as the phone slipped from her trembling hand. For a moment, everything vanished: her dreams, her hopes, and even the soft flutters of the baby in her womb. The illusions of a loyal, loving husband collapsed beneath the weight of Vanessa's revelations. When Andrew returned that evening, Elena confronted him. Her voice trembled, and her face was pale with heartbreak. She recounted the phone call, every word an accusation that slashed at Andrew's carefully curated facade. Instead of denial, Andrew stood frozen, his complexion ashen. Slowly, his silence morphed into vague justifications: work stress, a momentary lapse, an enticement by Vanessa. He said he never intended to hurt her, that it just happened. The phrases were hollow. Elena's fury erupted, but behind the anger lay profound grief. She stormed out of the living room, slamming the door so violently that it rattled the china in the glass cabinets. In the days that followed, Andrew tried to apologize with extravagance: a diamond bracelet, a new car, a promise that Vanessa meant nothing. But Elena couldn't be bought. She wasn't after revenge, nor did she want trinkets to bandage her wounded soul. All she had ever wanted was a loyal partner and a stable family for their unborn child. Now that faith had been shaken to the core. As weeks turned into months, Andrew's attempts at reconciliation became increasingly desperate. He insisted Vanessa was out of the picture, but Elena remained unconvinced. Her health deteriorated under the weight of her broken heart. She stopped attending public events. Alarmed, Dr. Moore advised her to consider therapy, to take a break from the constant emotional roller coaster. Andrew, by then, seemed more worried about how rumors might affect his reputation than the toll it was taking on his pregnant wife. Alone and emotionally drained, Elena made a decision that would change everything. One night, in the hush of an unlit hallway, she packed a single suitcase, left a short farewell letter on the nightstand, and slipped away into darkness. Andrew would wake to find her gone, along with the unborn child he had so carelessly endangered. It would be months before anyone heard from Elena, again months, during which Andrew, feeling both guilt and freedom, descended deeper into his entanglement with Vanessa Reynolds, the woman who had broken the Lockwood marriage wide open. With Elena gone, Andrew faced a tumult of emotions, guilt, relief, and a strange sense of liberation. He hired private investigators to search for her, putting out discreet inquiries to find any trace of where she had fled. Yet, as days bled into weeks and weeks into months, with no sign of Elena, Andrew found himself drawn deeper into Vanessa's magnetic pull. Vanessa Reynolds hailed from a modest background, but she had always dreamed big. She'd worked her way up the corporate ladder at Lockwood Holdings, starting as an administrative assistant before eventually landing a position in the acquisitions department. Smart, cunning, and fiercely ambitious, Vanessa never hid her desires for the finer things in life. Over time, she managed to catch Andrew's eye with her intelligence and her willingness to do whatever it took to secure lucrative deals. When Elena first vanished, Vanessa offered Andrew the solace and support he craved. But this comfort quickly transitioned into a sizzling affair that spilled into the public sphere. Paparazzi snapped photos of them stepping out of expensive nightclubs, dining at the trendiest restaurants in Beverly Hills, and vacationing on Andrew's yacht off the coast of Greece. Gossip columns feasted on the scandal. Millionaire Andrew Lockwood's wife mysteriously vanishes. Is Vanessa Reynolds the new Mrs. Lockwood? Although Andrew tried to keep a low profile, Vanessa basked in the spotlight, flaunting designer gowns and flashing diamonds gifted by Andrew. Despite his outward show of confidence, Andrew's conscience nagged at him. He recalled Elena's last words in her farewell letter, "I gave you my heart, you gave me your betrayal." He hadn't known how to respond then, and he still didn't. At times, he wondered if Elena was safe, if the child was healthy, if she would ever forgive him. But these thoughts were fleeting, drowned out by the cacophony of business deals, parties, and Vanessa's unrelenting demands for affection and affirmation. Vanessa, on the other hand, was reveling in her newfound power. She had effectively stepped into Elena's social orbit, taking over philanthropic duties for the Lockwood Foundation, at least superficially. She posed at charity galas, ensured the press captured her every philanthropic gesture, and name-dropped important figures like Christine Morgan to bolster her image. Indeed, Vanessa was masterful at molding public perception, though behind closed doors, she clashed with Andrew over control of the Lockwood empire. A turning point arrived when Vanessa suggested it was time for Andrew to file for divorce. If Elena was truly gone, then a legal separation would allow them to move forward. But Andrew hesitated. He had never been a man who would wholly discard the wife he once loved, especially one carrying his child. As much as he was enthralled by Vanessa, something within him balked at severing ties with Elena so permanently. The situation grew more complicated when Vanessa confided her own ambitions. She wanted a seat on the Lockwood Board of Directors, a controlling stake in future acquisitions, and a public engagement ring from Andrew. She had played the role of mistress long enough. It was time for her to ascend to the official position of Miss S. Lockwood. While part of Andrew found her ambition alluring, another part warned him he was veering into dangerous territory. This was no ordinary affair, but a full-scale infiltration of his life by a woman whose appetite for power matched, if not exceeded, his own. Despite the swirling chaos, Andrew kept up appearances. He assured business associates that all was well at home, attributing Elena's absence to medical treatment overseas or extended visits with her family. Meanwhile, Vanessa strategically leaked their love story to the press, painting herself as a supportive partner who had stepped in to help Andrew cope with the tragedy of his missing wife. Public sympathy for Andrew waned, though. Critics labeled him a callous playboy who cast aside a pregnant spouse for a more thrilling partner. Underneath it all, Andrew struggled with nightmares, distorted visions of Elena crying out for help, a baby's faint heartbeat echoing in the dark. Yet every morning he rose to indulge Vanessa's demands, drowning his unease in lavish distractions. The real question was, how long could he keep juggling these conflicting emotions before fate intervened? And fate was about to strike in the most unexpected way. It was an unseasonably cold winter's evening in Beverly Hills. Andrew was dressed in an impeccably tailored suit, schmoozing at a high-profile fundraiser at the Four Seasons Hotel. Vanessa clung to his arm, her ruby-red gown shimmering under the chandeliers. They were the picture of opulence, though Andrew wore an uneasy expression. He'd received a phone call from his private investigator earlier that day, a lead on Elena's whereabouts, something about a hospital in San Francisco, but no conclusive evidence had turned up. Halfway through the evening, Christine Morgan, the esteemed philanthropist, approached Andrew with a grave face. "Have you heard the news?" she asked quietly. Andrew felt his stomach twist. An ominous sense of dread crept over him. Christine explained that earlier in the week, someone fitting Elena's description had been seen at Redwood General Hospital, disoriented, weak, and accompanied by an infant. Immediately, Andrew excused himself from the fundraiser, ignoring Vanessa's indignant protests. He sped north along the Pacific Coast Highway, heart pounding. His mind raced with possibilities. Could Elena truly have returned? And what had become of the baby? Reaching Redwood General Hospital, Andrew practically sprinted through the sterile corridors. A quick inquiry at the reception desk led him to the maternity ward. His hands trembled as he pushed open the heavy white door. The sight that greeted him rattled his very core. Elena lay in a hospital bed, pale as a wraith, tubes in her arm. An infant in a bassinet nearby was fussing quietly. "Doctor." Regina Moore stood over them, her expression a mixture of relief and guarded resentment. Andrew froze. He noticed the tear streaks on Elena's cheeks and the protective way she cradled the baby. Once she realized Andrew was there, she looked fragile, her face etched with sorrow and fatigue, but also lit by a quiet resilience. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. Every sound, beeping monitors, hushed medical staff, faded to a dull hum. Dr. Moore was the first to break the silence. "She came here in critical condition a few days ago," she said, her voice laced with reproach. She'd been living in a small motel, malnourished and under incredible stress. The baby arrived prematurely. Your son, Andrew. That single sentence, your son, pierced Andrew's heart. He moved closer, drawn by a desperate need to be near them. Elena's eyes brimmed with tears, but she looked away, her pain too raw to allow any tender reunion. Softly he whispered, "I'm so sorry," but no apology could mend the fractures he had created. In the days that followed, Andrew camped out at the hospital, ignoring calls from Vanessa and postponing all business obligations. He brought fresh flowers, baby supplies, and anything Elena or the newborn might need. The hospital staff noted the shift in his demeanor, from the aloof millionaire to a worried, repentant partner. Still, Elena kept her guard up. The only person she trusted was Dr. Moore, who had been her lifeline during the darkest days. She had visited Elena at the motel, provided medical care when Elena was too afraid to reveal her pregnancy to anyone else, and eventually brought her to Redwood General when complications arose. One day, as Andrew cradled the tiny infant named Michael, he realized the profound magnitude of his betrayal. His son was so small, so vulnerable, and he had not been there to welcome him into the world. Suddenly, the corporate deals and lavish parties felt meaningless. A surge of paternal protectiveness rushed through him, and he knew he wanted nothing more than to make amends to both Elena and Michael. Elena, however, remained conflicted. Her distrust of Andrew ran deep. She saw the pain in his eyes, but memories of his betrayal loomed larger. She had left to escape the heartbreak and protect her child from a father who hadn't seemed to care. Yet here he was now, visibly changed, pleading with her to come home. Faced with medical bills and nowhere else to go, Elena reluctantly agreed to move back into the Malibu estate, at least until she regained her strength. But she set firm boundaries: separate bedrooms, no illusions of rekindling romance, and absolutely no contact with Vanessa. Andrew agreed to all conditions without argument, aware that regaining Elena's trust would take far more than empty gestures. The stage was set for a complicated homecoming, one where a fragile mother, a newborn child, and a remorseful husband tried to coexist under one roof. Only time would tell if forgiveness was possible, or if the ghosts of Andrew's affair would haunt them all forever. Elena returned to the Malibu mansion in a wheelchair, still weak from her ordeal. The staff, caught between loyalty to Andrew and genuine sympathy for Elena, welcomed her warmly. A private nurse was hired to assist both mother and child, ensuring they had round-the-clock care. Michael, now a few weeks old, alternated between bouts of newborn wailing and peaceful slumber, his wide eyes already reflecting an uncanny resemblance to his father. Andrew transformed a sunlit room on the second floor into a cozy nursery, painting the walls a soothing seafoam green. Plush teddy bears and mobiles adorned the space, and Elena's favorite lullabies played softly. Despite these earnest efforts, the house's atmosphere crackled with unease. Elena made it clear she would stay only until she was strong enough to move out on her own. She refused to wear her wedding ring, stating plainly that she was no longer certain of their marriage's future. Andrew tried to keep Vanessa at bay, ignoring her endless calls and messages. But Vanessa was relentless, bombarding him with threats of going public about their relationship or sabotaging his business deals. She'd built up enough leverage during her time as his mistress, intimate conversations, signed documents, insider knowledge of Lockwood Holdings to pose a serious threat. Andrew confided in his legal team, who advised him to handle the situation delicately. A public scandal now could destroy not only his reputation, but also the foundation Elena was trying to rebuild. Late one evening, after Elena had gone to bed, Andrew paced the corridors, phone in hand. Vanessa's texts continued popping up on the screen. "Don't ignore me. You think you can just toss me aside? I have proof you embezzled funds for that new property deal in Miami." Andrew swallowed hard. While it wasn't embezzlement, he had taken a risky loan from a private account. Vanessa had enough evidence to twist the story. Panic surged. How had he allowed himself to fall under her spell so deeply that he'd provided her with a potential weapon? The next morning, Andrew stood on the balcony, overlooking the ocean as the sunrise painted the sky in pastel hues. He heard the faint cries of Michael from the nursery, followed by Elena's soft cooing. Slowly, he walked toward the nursery door, uncertain if his presence would be welcome. He found Elena cradling Michael in a rocking chair. She glanced at him, a flicker of indecision in her eyes. Without a word, she extended Michael toward Andrew, letting him hold the child. A brief, fragile moment of unity passed between them as they both gazed into their son's eyes. "I want to try," Andrew said quietly. "I know I can never undo what I've done, but I want to be a father to him. I want to be better." Elena said nothing, but she didn't take the baby away. That, at least, was progress. Over the following days, Andrew immersed himself in fatherhood. He woke for midnight feedings, changed diapers, and learned to swaddle Michael. He kept the business side of his life strictly separate, conducting meetings in a distant office wing. For a while, it looked as though a fragile peace might settle. Elena began taking short walks along the beach, letting the salty breeze fill her lungs. She appreciated Andrew's new devotion to Michael, but every time she looked at him, she saw flashes of her loneliness, of those nights she cried herself to sleep while he was with Vanessa. In the midst of this precarious balance, an unexpected visitor arrived, Christine Morgan. Concerned for Elena's well-being, she came bearing homemade soup and maternal warmth. As they spoke in the living room, Christine gently probed Elena's feelings about Andrew. Elena admitted she saw glimmers of the man she had once loved, but the hurt lingered too deeply to simply vanish. She also confessed her fears about Vanessa's looming presence, the anxiety that at any moment Vanessa could reappear, unraveling the fragile sanctuary they were trying to create. Christine offered her counsel. "Nobody can decide for you whether to forgive Andrew," she said, "but carry too much anger, and it'll poison you and your child. For your sake, and Michael's, give yourself permission to heal whatever that healing looks like." With a reluctant nod, Elena accepted those words. She knew forgiveness was not the same as forgetting. Forgiving Andrew might free her heart from bitterness, but rebuilding trust would be a separate battle altogether. As Christine left, Elena gazed at a framed wedding photo on the mantel, a beaming bride and groom in happier times. For the first time since she'd returned, she considered that maybe, just maybe, there was a path forward. Yet the spectre of Vanessa loomed large, threatening any chance at a fresh start. The question remained, could the Lockwoods withstand the storm that was about to break? The storm arrived one crisp morning. Andrew was in the study, reviewing property contract renewals, when his phone buzzed. An urgent text from an unnamed number. "Check the tabloids." Front page. His stomach sank. Sure enough, in bold letters across several tabloid websites, Vanessa Reynolds speaks out. Andrew Lockwood's secret affairs and financial scandals. The articles were laced with scandalous allegations. Vanessa claimed she and Andrew had been intimately involved for over a year, that Andrew had funneled company funds into offshore accounts to buy her lavish gifts, and that Elena's disappearance was no accident but a carefully orchestrated ploy to hide a failing marriage. Andrew slammed his laptop shut, the blood rushing to his temples. The phone rang with calls from business associates, the Lockwood Foundation Board, and even tabloids seeking a statement. Before he could gather himself, the house intercom buzzed a visitor at the gate. Through the security camera, he saw Vanessa, hair impeccably styled, in a sleek black dress. She demanded to speak with him or else. With a pit in his stomach, Andrew instructed the staff to let her in, hoping to avoid a public scene on his doorstep. Vanessa swept in like a tempest, her eyes darting around the foyer until they landed on Andrew. She wasted no time. "I warned you," she hissed, thrusting a tabloid at his chest. "You decided to freeze me out, so I had no choice." Elena, who had been returning from a morning walk on the balcony, peeked around the corner. Her face paled at the sight of Vanessa. Sensing Elena's presence, Vanessa turned, wearing a thin smile. "Well, well, look who's back from the dead. How's motherhood treating you, Elena?" Elena froze, unsure whether to confront Vanessa or retreat. Finally, summoning her courage, she stepped forward. "You have no right to be here," she said quietly, voice trembling. "Whatever issues you have, take them up with Andrew." Vanessa laughed, a sharp sound echoing off the marble floors. "Oh, Elena, I have every right. Andrew made me promises about our future, about my role in his life, and since he decided to ghost me, I took matters into my own hands." Andrew intervened, voice tight with controlled anger. "That's enough, Vanessa. We can discuss this somewhere private." They retreated to the study, leaving Elena standing uncertainly in the hallway. Behind closed doors, Vanessa laid down her ultimatum. She wanted Andrew to publicly acknowledge their relationship, grant her a stake in the company, and pay her a substantial settlement. If he refused, she threatened to leak more damaging information, some real, some fabricated, but all designed to smear the Lockwood name. Andrew's head throbbed. He realized too late just how deeply he'd entangled himself with Vanessa, giving her ammunition. He couldn't simply discredit. "I'll offer you a settlement," he said carefully, "but I won't give you a stake in the company, and I sure as hell won't acknowledge our relationship publicly." Vanessa's eyes narrowed. "We'll see about that." Turning on her heel, she sauntered out of the study. Before she could exit the mansion entirely, Elena appeared again, arms crossed defensively. Their eyes locked, Vanessa's brimming with smug arrogance, Elena's with fragile determination. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Vanessa leaned in close, whispering so only Elena could hear. "He came to me willingly, you know. I didn't have to chase him, and he told me he never regretted it." Elena's cheeks flushed. Pain flared in her eyes, but she stood her ground. Summoning a composure she barely felt, she answered, "He chose wrong, and now he has to live with that." Vanessa gave a mocking laugh. "You're so naive if you think you've won." With that final jab, she swept out of the house, the door slamming behind her. The emotional aftershock lingered in the silence. Andrew emerged from the study, anger and regret etched into his face. He saw Elena trembling, tears gathering at the corners of her eyes, and realized just how precarious their situation had become. In that moment, Andrew understood there was no easy way out. Vanessa's ultimatum had shattered the fragile hope of a quiet reconciliation. If he didn't act swiftly, he stood to lose everything: his marriage, his child, and the very empire his ancestors had built. The fallout from Vanessa's tabloid revelations was swift and brutal. Investors began to worry about Lockwood Holdings' stability. Board members demanded an urgent meeting, and journalists hounded Andrew for statements. In the midst of this chaos, Elena found herself at an emotional crossroads. She saw Andrew struggling to put out the corporate fires sparked by Vanessa, yet her own wounds from his betrayal still bled raw. Christine Morgan paid another visit, anxious about the media frenzy. Sitting in the garden gazebo with Elena and Andrew, she offered a potential plan. "Andrew, you need to address the board immediately, full transparency about Vanessa's accusations. If you let rumors fester, you'll lose both credibility and your leadership." Andrew nodded, fatigue etched into his features. "I'll schedule a board meeting for tomorrow. But what about Vanessa? She's got so much on me: personal details, a questionable financial transaction. I can't deny that I used a private account to fund some gifts." Christine frowned but remained composed. "That may look bad, but it's not necessarily illegal if you can prove the funds came from your personal holdings and not the company. You'll need a good lawyer and a solid PR team." Elena stayed mostly silent, though she was surprised to find a spark of sympathy for Andrew's predicament. He had certainly brought this upon himself, yet the scandal was bigger than just his love. It threatened the livelihoods of thousands of employees under the Lockwood umbrella and the philanthropic programs that bore their family name. Meanwhile, Dr. Regina Moore, who had been following Elena's recovery closely, arrived at the mansion with some news of her own. She had friends in the medical field who could offer evidence disproving one of Vanessa's tabloid claims that Andrew had forcibly made Elena disappear during her pregnancy. Dr. Moore's hospital records, showing Elena's admission under her guidance, painted a different picture. Elena had left voluntarily, seeking refuge in a small motel to escape emotional stress. This medical documentation could undermine Vanessa's more defamatory allegations. Elena slowly realized she held a piece of the puzzle. Her own experiences and the timeline of her departure disproved Vanessa's narrative. Though fear of public scrutiny weighed heavily on her, she found a fresh resolve. If she remained silent, Vanessa could spin her lies unchecked, potentially destroying the Lockwood empire, including philanthropic initiatives Elena cared about, like the children's hospital they'd funded. Tentatively, Elena approached Andrew one late evening in the library, where he was poring over legal papers. The gentle crackle of a fireplace cast soft shadows across the bookshelves. "I'm willing to give a statement," she said, voice trembling but firm. "I can verify the timeline, show that you never forced me to leave, that I left on my own." Andrew looked up, hope flickering in his tired eyes. "You would do that?" Elena exhaled a shaky breath. "I'm not doing this for us, Andrew. I'm doing it for Michael's future, and for all the good the Lockwood Foundation stands for. This scandal, it's bigger than our pain." Over the next few days, they marshaled their allies. Andrew's legal team prepared a detailed rebuttal of Vanessa's claims, complete with financial records from his personal trust. Christine Morgan agreed to stand at Andrew's side during a press conference, emphasizing her long-standing relationship with the Lockwoods and her confidence in their integrity. Dr. Moore readied Elena's medical records, ensuring they complied with privacy laws, but presented enough facts to negate Vanessa's allegations. The day of the board meeting arrived. Andrew, looking solemn yet resolute, entered the grand Lockwood conference room. Mahogany tables glistened under bright overhead lights. Seated around it were the board members, many wearing expressions of concern. Murmurs rippled across the room as Andrew took the podium, flanked by Christine Morgan and his legal counsel. Elena watched from the sidelines, her heart pounding. The tension was palpable. This was a make-or-break moment for Lockwood Holdings. After a formal greeting, Andrew cleared his throat. "I stand before you to address the allegations made against me and our company. These accusations are both deeply personal and potentially harmful to our brand. However, I intend to shed light on the truth." With that, he delved into a thorough presentation, a timeline of events showing Elena's voluntary departure, financial statements proving the so-called embezzled gifts came from a private account, and a personal apology for allowing his private indiscretions to endanger the company. As Andrew spoke, the board's initial hostility began to soften. The real turning point came when Elena, visibly trembling, stepped forward to confirm her voluntary departure. She explained, in carefully chosen words, why she felt compelled to leave and how Andrew had never coerced or harmed her. A hush fell over the room. Some board members looked visibly relieved. Others appeared reflective, recognizing the gravity of the family drama. When the meeting concluded, the board agreed to stand by Andrew, provided he continued to uphold transparency and severed ties with Vanessa in every capacity. As people filed out, many offered Andrew measured support, patting his shoulder or meeting his gaze with understanding. It wasn't a victory parade, but it was a lifeline. Beyond the oak doors of the conference room, Elena caught Andrew's eye. They shared a moment of silent gratitude. Neither pretended their personal relationship was fixed, but for the first time since her return, it felt like they were standing on the same side. Together, they would take the next crucial step, confronting Vanessa's onslaught directly. News of the successful board meeting spread quickly. Financial markets calmed, Lockwood Holdings stock stabilized, and employees breathed sighs of relief. Yet, the specter of Vanessa still lingered. She took to social media, posting cryptic threats and supposedly incriminating screenshots of messages from Andrew. Some of these texts were real, showing the flirtation and intimacy they once shared, while others appeared doctored, hinting at business malfeasance. The tabloids churned out speculative headlines. Vanessa exposes private chats. Could Andrew Lockwood face legal trouble? With the company's board tentatively reassured, Andrew and Elena turned their attention to safeguarding their personal lives. Their lawyer advised them to pursue an injunction against Vanessa for harassment and defamation, but Vanessa's cunning moves kept them on edge. She hopped from one sensational interview to another, fueling public fascination with the scandal. Some viewers believed Vanessa was a scorned woman seeking justice. Others dismissed her as a gold digger. Regardless, the media circus wouldn't subside until one side decisively triumphed. In the midst of this turmoil, Andrew and Elena discovered an unexpected moment of calm. Late at night, after the staff had retired, they found themselves in the mansion's sprawling kitchen. Elena was trying to heat a bottle for Michael when Andrew walked in. Silence hung between them, the tension of unresolved feelings palpable. "I never asked you why you stayed away so long," Andrew began softly, keeping his distance. I know I betrayed you, but you vanished." Elena's eyes flickered with pain. She looked down, adjusting the bottle's temperature. "I was terrified, hurt. I felt trapped in this world of wealth and appearances, where my heartbreak was just another issue to be managed. I wanted to protect Michael from that. And I thought you wouldn't care if I disappeared." Andrew swallowed hard, shame washing over him. "I was a fool, Elena. I was too wrapped up in my ego in Vanessa to see how much you were suffering. The day I realized you were gone, truly gone, it was like the floor fell out from under me." Tears glistened in Elena's eyes as she tested the bottle on her wrist. "I still don't know if I can forgive you." "Everything has changed," Andrew nodded. "I know, but I'd do anything to make things right, for you and Michael." At that, Michael's soft cry echoed from the nursery. Elena left to feed him, leaving Andrew standing in the dimly lit kitchen, alone with his remorse and determination. The next morning, they received an unexpected call from a journalist at the Los Angeles Mirror, a reputable newspaper known for investigative reporting rather than sensationalism. The journalist, David Kim, claimed he had stumbled upon evidence of Vanessa's prior blackmail attempts involving other wealthy executives in the city. Intrigued, Andrew and Elena agreed to meet David discreetly at a local cafe. Over steaming cups of coffee, David produced documents suggesting Vanessa had a pattern. She would seduce powerful men, gather incriminating material, and then extort money or favors. As Andrew flipped through pages of alleged receipts, suspicious wire transfers, and statements from other victims, his jaw tightened. "If this is real," he said quietly, "it proves Vanessa's entire persona is built on manipulation. We could finally expose her." Elena felt a flicker of validation, but also a surge of empathy for the other women involved, wives and girlfriends caught in Vanessa's schemes. She glanced at David Kim. "Why come to us?" David shrugged. "Vanessa's been cunning at staying one step ahead, covering her tracks. But with your story on the front pages, more people have come forward, hoping to see her stopped for good. If you and your lawyers want to make a case, I can provide some leads." That evening, Andrew's legal team examined the evidence, verifying as much as possible. They found that the accusations against Vanessa were not just rumor. There was a disturbing pattern consistent with extortion. It seemed she specialized in weaponizing personal relationships for profit. Emboldened, Andrew set up a formal meeting with the district attorney's office, intending to file an official complaint against Vanessa. If we move forward, the lead lawyer cautioned, expect a war in the public sphere. She'll do everything in her power to discredit and counter-sue. Andrew looked at Elena, who nodded solemnly. We can't let her keep destroying lives, Elena said quietly, and so the Lockwoods braced themselves for the next phase, a public reckoning with Vanessa Reynolds. For Andrew, it represented a chance at redemption, a chance to protect what remained of his family. For Elena, it was an opportunity to finally confront the woman who had shattered her marriage. Win or lose, this battle would set the course for their future and perhaps their ultimate path to forgiveness and healing. Weeks of legal wrangling culminated in a high-stakes courtroom hearing. The Lockwoods legal team filed for an injunction against Vanessa and, in tandem, collaborated with the district attorney's office to present evidence of extortion. Vanessa, as expected, fired back with her own lawsuit, accusing Andrew of breach of promise and defamation. The media swarmed the courthouse steps in downtown Los Angeles. Paparazzi snapped photos of Andrew and Elena arriving together, a united front for the first time since Elena's return. Elena, wearing a simple black dress, carried herself with quiet dignity. Andrew, in a dark, tailored suit, exuded a calmer confidence than before, an air of a man who understood he was fighting not just for personal vindication, but for his family's future. Inside, the hearing began with Vanessa's attorney outlining her case. She portrayed Vanessa as a naive employee who had fallen for Andrew's advances, only to be cast aside once she was no longer convenient. The lawyer alleged that Andrew made binding promises of financial security and a future together. Further, Vanessa's team painted Elena as a vindictive wife who returned solely to strip Vanessa of her rightful place by Andrew's side. When it was Andrew's turn, his lead counsel dissected Vanessa's incriminating pattern, citing the documentation acquired through David Kim's investigative leads. They showed suspicious bank transfers from multiple wealthy men, messages brimming with hidden threats, and statements from witnesses who'd been coerced into silence. The highlight, however, came when a former colleague of Vanessa's from Lockwood Holdings took the stand. She testified that Vanessa frequently boasted about bagging a Lockwood, strategizing the best way to secure leverage. Her stories matched the pattern of the extortion scheme. Vanessa, seated at the defendant's table, appeared composed but occasionally flashed anger. At one point, she leaned over to confer with her lawyer, her expression venomous as she locked eyes with Elena. Elena held her gaze, heart pounding. She thought of Michael, of the night she had cried alone in that motel, of the indignities inflicted by a woman who reveled in her suffering. Next, it was Elena's turn to testify. Courtroom hushed as she rose and walked to the witness stand. Her voice wavered initially, but she drew strength from the memory of her motherly devotion and the unwavering support of Dr. Moore and Christine Morgan. Step by step, Elena recounted her discovery of Andrew's affair, her decision to leave, and her eventual return. She clarified that she left voluntarily, with no knowledge of Vanessa's manipulations at the time. More importantly, she painted a picture of a woman broken by betrayal and heartbreak, hardly the orchestrated villain Vanessa claimed. During cross-examination, Vanessa's lawyer attempted to rattle Elena, suggesting she'd come back for financial security or that she wanted revenge. But Elena stood firm. "I came back because I was sick and needed medical help for my baby," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "Andrew is the father, and despite our issues, I never wanted to destroy his reputation. All I wanted was to heal and protect my son. A hush lingered after her final words. Even some spectators who'd initially viewed the case as just another scandalous soap opera looked on with empathy for Elena. In the days that followed, more testimonies and evidence were presented. Andrew's questionable embezzlement turned out to be mischaracterized. He had used a personal trust fund, not company assets, to buy Vanessa gifts. Legal financial experts confirmed there was no corporate fraud. The tide gradually turned against Vanessa, whose flamboyant accusations failed to stand up to scrutiny. The judge called for closing statements. Vanessa's legal team insisted she was a victim of a powerful family's smear campaign. Andrew's team argued she was a serial extortionist who preyed on high-profile figures. Ultimately, the judge ruled that the injunction against Vanessa stood, restricting her from releasing further defaming statements or private information. As for criminal charges, the district attorney's office would proceed with a formal investigation into Vanessa's alleged extortion attempts. Exiting the courthouse, Andrew and Elena found themselves surrounded by flashing cameras. A hush fell as reporters shouted questions. "Are you two reconciling? Did you plan this all along? What about your child?" Elena, overwhelmed, clung to Andrew's arm. For the first time in a long while, Andrew wrapped a protective arm around her. A subtle sign of unity, or perhaps a hint that they were rediscovering the bond they once shared. As they navigated through the crowd, Elena felt a complicated mix of relief and exhaustion. The hearing was only one battle. The war wasn't over. Vanessa could still face criminal trials, and the tabloids would continue to feast on every morsel. But for the first time, Elena saw a glimmer of justice. Perhaps this was the beginning of an end to the torment, paving a path forward for her and the fragile family she was trying to rebuild. In the weeks following the courtroom victory, the media narrative shifted dramatically. Headlines once dripping with scandal turned into cautious, even sympathetic accounts of how the Lockwood family had navigated a highly public betrayal. Vanessa's influence waned as the district attorney pursued formal charges of attempted extortion. While she still hurled insults from her social media accounts, public interest in her story fizzled. At the Malibu mansion, the atmosphere gradually eased. Elena, feeling a sense of closure, found her health improving. She took daily walks with Michael along the beach, letting the ocean breeze wash away lingering sadness. Andrew, for his part, dialed back his relentless schedule, dedicating more time to fatherhood and introspection. He often joined Elena and Michael on their walks, making quiet attempts at conversation. Though the tension between him and Elena remained, trust once shattered was not easily rebuilt. There was a growing sense of mutual understanding. Christine Morgan, ever the family friend, organized a small gathering at the mansion to celebrate the resolution of the court case. Close friends, key staff from the Lockwood Foundation, and Dr. Regina Moore attended. It was a modest affair, a far cry from the ostentatious parties once hosted by the Lockwoods. Amid clinking glasses of champagne, people shared stories of relief, solidarity, and the hope that the worst was behind them. Later that evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon in a spectacular blaze of orange and pink, Andrew and Elena found themselves alone on the terrace. The party had wound down, and guests were drifting away. Standing by the balustrade, they looked out at the endless expanse of ocean, the rhythmic sound of waves reminiscent of a heart's steady beat. Andrew turned to Elena, a mixture of apprehension and longing in his eyes. "I want to talk about us," he said quietly. "Not about the scandal, the company, or Vanessa, just us." Elena's gaze flickered to him. She still carried the weight of his betrayal, but she also remembered the laughter they once shared, the genuine partnership they had forged before everything unraveled. "Okay," she whispered. He exhaled. as if bracing himself. I know I'm the one who broke everything, and I know I can't just say I'm sorry and fix it. But I need you to know that these past months, seeing you with Michael, watching you fight for what's right for our family's legacy, it made me see the kind of person you truly are. You're strong, compassionate, more than I ever deserved. Elena felt her throat tighten. Memories flashed through her mind. The first day she met him, her wedding day, the heartbreak of finding out about Vanessa, and the loneliness of her motel room. There was hurt, yes, but also the faint stirring of something else, hope. I can't pretend the pain is gone, she replied. But I see you've changed, Andrew. You're owning your mistakes. You're being a father. The soft glow of the terrace lights reflected in Andrew's eyes. Slowly, he reached for her hand. I want to be the husband I was supposed to be. I want to rebuild, if that's even possible, but I'll respect any choice you make, whether you stay or go or want me out of your life for good. Elena hesitated, tears gathering at the corners of her eyes. Then she squeezed his hand. Michael deserves a chance at a real family. I'm willing to try, Andrew, one step at a time, with honesty. A tender smile curved Andrew's lips. He pulled Elena into a gentle embrace, the first in what felt like an eternity. The warmth of his body, combined with the salt-tinged wind of the Pacific, enveloped them both. In that moment, as a new chapter beckoned, they silently vowed to face whatever the future held together. Thank you for watching and experiencing this emotional journey of betrayal, heartbreak, and redemption in Pregnant Wife. Returns, millionaire husband abandons mistress and begs for a second chance. We followed Andrew and Elena as they navigated devastating secrets, a relentless mistress, and the unbreakable bonds of family, culminating in a powerful testimony to the resilience of the human heart. Their story reminds us that love, when tested, can either collapse under pressure or be reborn stronger than before. If you enjoyed this roller coaster of drama and want more riveting tales, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us continue bringing you stories filled with tension, passion, and hope. Spread the word and join our growing community of drama lovers. Until next time, stay tuned for more captivating fiction right here on our channel.